Hi everybody, it's Kathy from Huckleberry Herbs and Art. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for stopping by to see what I have to share today. I made this card with the Heartfelt Creations Calla Lily collection, and it came out pretty, I think, and it's been a while since I've had time to put up a video of making anything, so I hope you'll hang in with me for a minute and see how I did this process. Again, I started with the Heartfelt Creations Calla Lily collection, a nice soft muted collection. Now Heartfelt Creation has these papers that you can just use right away with your dies if you don't have time to stamp and color, and I was anxious to just dig into the project, so I used those white petals. And the leaves on this collection, or in this collection, are excellent. There's the die for the lilies and the leaves. They come together. And after cutting these out, I decided, perfect, very nice cutting with these. They took the edges right down to where I wanted with just a little tiny bit that I will come back and fix. And I used the mold that goes along with this collection. If you haven't seen these before, you run them through your die machine, and they really do a great job at putting impressions in the papers that would have taken hours by hand. This may not look like much when you take a quick look at it here, but that's a lot of work to get the paper fibers to be in those shapes, and it was a great start to making these look like real calla lilies. Now I'm making the back side. I already did the front side, but I have found if I don't put some ink on the back side, for sure that flower or that petal is going to be the one that flips over and should have had some ink. So I just do it right up front. And as I said, the dies did a good job at cutting very close, but I just wanted to take that little bit of white edge off and maybe emphasize some of the darker spots on the leaves before I went on. Heartfelt sells these little stamen, so I'm going to be using some of their little sparkly stamen for the inside of the calla lily. And I am using my stylus to just break down the fibers a little bit more. Really easy because it went through the mold. I can just follow along the areas that were already indented and make sure that they're going to be shaped the way that I want them for this particular project. I know I wanted them to curl backward more on the edges, so now that the mold has done its work, I can just come and, fiddle around with it a little and get my hands into the project with making the shapes that I want, preparing for what I know I'm going to do with the calla lily, especially putting that stamen in. That's why I'm trying to just sort of shape it for the closed look that I'm going to give, because I want this card to be very dimensional. My hope is that I will be using one of my little plastic boxes, which huckleberryherbs.com, by the way, I have some of the Heartfelt Creations stuff. I don't have the calla lily, but I'm really thinking I need to get this into the store. And I have a lot of the old stuff there. And I have these little boxes that you can put your really dimensional cards in. I like to put them right on top of the package when I give them as a gift. So as you can see, I'm using hot glue for this and just pinching the bottom together and hold it for a second. And all that shaping and molding in the end really did help this to look like a real calla lily. So yes, I'm hoping to use this as a first anniversary card for someone in the family. And I'm taking my time to make it look extra special. And calla lilies to me are definitely wedding anniversary related. I remember my first house, that was one of the first things that I planted, and although a lot of things didn't come up, and I thought that calla lilies would be difficult, boy, those things popped up and they just stuck right out, and for the whole season, I was so happy to look out at those calla lilies. They're a very elegant, unique flower. So I decided they needed a little bit of sparkle, and that crystal clear has those very light translucent pink pieces inside, and I decided to do the whole flower. Now I like to do it very subtly with the glue, and I find that putting a little glue drop to the side with a spritz of water and then coming back with a brush, I can put a very thin coat of the glue on so that there's no globs, and the water helps it to keep from drying out before I've finished the whole piece. And I did want these flowers to stick out with their sparkle. So I'm covering the whole thing as best I can, and then I'll come back and put the sparkle on. But as you'll see in a second, when I hold it up, there is a spot in the center that I didn't get the glue on. This is one of the first pieces that I did, so every time you do a new project, you have to learn, I don't know, the gimmick for that project. So there's that little spot. I'll go back and put some glue there and fix that up. And when I'm finished with them, I think they turned out really nicely. I like the little pink flecks that are in there because the paper that I'm going to be using has white and pink calla lilies. So here's the feathery swan die, tripping on my tongue. And there's the swans that, again, I don't have to stamp and color them. I can get right to my project and use that sheet to cut them out. They cut out really well, but I forgot, because it's been a while since I did a project, that my Big Shot has a space that either turn your die a different direction or run it through twice or put a piece of paper in, because every single time, even if it's a simple die, that spot on the Big Shot is not going to get through. So I did have to come back with my little tool and poke out a few pieces, but the die is cut very nicely, so there was no problem in doing that. And these two swans look so sweet. I'm very pleased with them, but I'm thinking they need a little sparkle too. They can't be, matte in front of those very sparkled calla lilies, and they are going to be in the front center of the card. So again, a little bit of my dries clear glue with a spritz of water, and I'm just touching some spots to give them a tiny bit of sparkle. I didn't want to cover the whole entire thing. Don't forget the crown. And make sure that I have just a subtle sparkle on them. I'm sorry that the camera is in, out, in, out. It's a new camera for me. I haven't had that much time to play around with it, and it's great. It has such a sensitive auto focus on it that it kind of goes in and out. I forget when I do close-up shots that if I move my hands even an inch or two closer to the camera. Well, anyway, enough with that. Just forgive me, I'm working on getting better at that. And I'm just doing a little bit more where I see that the sparkle needs to be. And I chose to use a just plain white clear sparkle for the swan. Again, I'm trying to stay very subtle with this and not cover the whole pair of them up. So this is the paper that I decided to use from the collection for the card base, or for the background of the card. And as you can see, the pink and white lilies, I'm going to cut the center out right there, and I decided to as well mat it on a light gray piece of cardstock, and then come back with some of the iced spruce distress oxide and just touch up the edges a little. Every single time I think I'll get away with not doing it, it turns out that no, I really like it when the edges, the border, are highlighted a little and differentiated between the front or the foreground and the background. Now comes the fun and the painstaking time, right? So a little dry fitting here, because I'm putting some pretty large objects on a pretty small space, and I want them all to be very visible. In the end, I'm kind of bummed that those leaves, because you may not be able to see them on the camera, but they really had great dimension after coming out of the mold. But I watch my husband when he builds things, and he builds the whole thing, and he literally puts the whole thing together before he puts a screw or a nail in it. He does dry fitting too. So very important, because I want it with it so much dimension to not get torn and tattered coming in and out of the box or a card. So glue doesn't need to be over the whole thing, but the edges. And when you take something this dimensional to the card, you need to be careful not to just press down in the center, because you'll lose all of your dimension. So I try very hard to pick some key spots to put my fingers along the edges and the tips, and then come back and start fiddling around with the flowers and the swans, because now I have to really look ahead and think, okay, the swans are going to go on top of these things, and I don't want the edges of the flowers. They won't fit in my box if I don't. So some more dry fitting. You might have noticed I also cut the stems off so that they would just be a little piece left to help me glue down. Most of it's going, at least on that end of the flower, down underneath the swan anyway. So I just cut those off, and I'm trying one more time to see what would be the best placement. And once I have figured out, see, there I am trying to put that little tip in just a little more. I'll come back with my glue, making sure that my edges are not having pieces run over. In some cases, it's nice to have that on the card, but not in this case because of my plan. And the Dries Clear glue does a really good job. It only takes a few seconds for it to start to become very tacky and stay, but I am going to come back and just a few key spots with each of the flowers until I can get them all down and ready to put the swan on. A couple more dots of glue. Don't need to cover the whole thing, just that center back, maybe the point, and near the stamen wire. And I'm still fiddling with it. But finally, they're on, and now I have to get the swan on. Well, there's so much dimension to the flowers. I think to myself, okay, I'm going to have to do at least 2 layers of the foam because I'll otherwise squish the flowers trying to get them to stay on. But in dry fitting this, I find even 2 layers, it's just not enough. I'm really having to press the swans too hard to get them to stay on. So I'm back with a 3rd layer of double sticky tape, foam tape, so that I can get the swans to be up high enough so as not to press down on all that work that I did to get those flowers to look so dimensional and real and pretty. So I'm going to use 3 layers of sticky foam. And once I get the bottom, I try it again and we'll find one more time that that's still not enough. Oh boy, it's the small details, isn't it? Because now I'm thinking, well, the heads of the swans are just too loose. They need some double sticky too, so 3 layers behind the head so that the whole thing in the center where there are no flowers is lifted up enough so that they won't it won't look like the swans are caving in. So finally, I think I have just enough, and I start looking at those little feathery tips. And yeah, I don't want those to be torn when they come in and out of the envelope or the box, whichever they go in. So I decide that I'm going to glue just some of the really delicate tips to the flower that they're in front of, and I'm just putting a little Dries Clear glue on those spots. Sometimes things like this, they take a few different tries in a few different ways, and even though I put the glue on, they don't want to stick so well to the glitter when I start putting the little tips down. I like the dimension and the fact that they're sort of wrapping their feathers around the edges of the flowers, but it's going to take a little bit more effort to get everything down. And this is probably the most fussy part, other than tying a bow of the whole entire card. It really didn't take me that long to make this card, thanks to the fact that Heartfelt Creations has those really cool pages that you can just die cut right out of the box, essentially. So I'm going to be messing with this for a moment to just get the glue to actually stick in those very delicate spots that I don't want torn. I'm going to have to pick it up and spend a minute putting some more glue on there. At any rate, once I get these things to be touching the flower and enough glue to hold them down, and this card is pretty much finished. I won't be putting a sentiment on it today because I'll come back and fine tune it when the time comes. But just a nice last touch bow, which I like to use tacky glue whenever I'm using fabric and paper, but I come back with just a drop or 2 of the Dries Clear because it does dry so quickly and well to paper that it'll grab and hold on until the tacky glue has a chance to do its job. So there we go. There's the finished card with my 2 little swans, my Calla lilies, these pretty papers, and I did come back and, as you saw, put some paper on the inside, but this is pretty much it complete, and those are just so pretty. I love these Calla lilies. Now for the final test. Will it fit in the box? I had to cut the card to size. I had to hope that the dimension as far as the height from the card upward was going to be okay. And yay, it fits right into the box. Very happy. I'm really glad that you stopped by. Like I said, it's been a while since I've been able to make a how-to or tutorial video. And grateful to see you and hope you'll subscribe, give a thumbs up, tell me if you like this, and until next time, everybody, this is Kathy from Huckleberry Herbs and Art. God bless.